Hello and welcome to Meet an Indie Agency, part of Indie Agency News. I am Kyle O'Brien, managing editor for Indie Agency News. Today we're going to be talking music with Made Music Studio and Danielle Venne. Hello, how you doing?
Hey, Kyle. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent to have you on. And I obviously, with the selection of instruments behind you, we know we're in for quite the musical Meet an Indie Agency. So
I'll do my best.
tell us a little bit about your agency and what you're best known for.
All right. So Made Music Studio, we've been around for well over 20 years. And I think if people know us for one thing, it's sonic branding, sonic logos, audio logos, mnemonics, whatever you want to call them.
Right.
We do a lot more than that, but I'd say in terms of the work that's out there in the world that we're known for, we were one of the first agencies to really get into sonic branding as an offering, as kind of a well thought out offering, not just as a one-off.
Mhm.
So I think we've kind of cut our teeth on that, if you will.
Gotcha. So then what do you think the top 3 core strengths are? Not just sonic branding, but add a couple more to that.
I'll add a couple more to that. Well, I think like we're really good at making these all maybe come together in one thing, but we're really good at making like miniature compositions, right? If you want to think musically for a second, like what we do is put a lot of value to a brand in like this much music, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds. And that sort of thinking, that sort of methodology of thinking, like we're really good at like the strategic use of sound and music. So if you're using sound strategically, you're not necessarily using a lot of sound, you might be using a little bit of sound. So core strength would be how to use music strategically, and sometimes that's really small sounds. Adjacent to that is we're really good at making music that is going to live in the world for more than like a campaign cycle. So like a lot of the stuff that we do will live on air, will live in the markets, it'll stay with a brand for 10, 15, even 20 years sometimes. And I think that's I think that's something very different than a lot of other companies that I've gotten to know, is the longevity of our work. And to that extent, a third strength I'd put on there is that we go really deep when we work with the client to understand the need behind the needs and understand how are we going to bring the kind of emotional core of a brand to life with music in a little bit of time.
Gotcha. That's, I mean, obviously, when you say longevity, you think about some of the major brands out there and how long some of these sounds, jingles, those how long they live in the universe, and it's much longer than just a campaign. So that you must be constantly thinking long term on that.
Yeah. So like the AT&T Sonic logo, bunk, 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 bunk.
Right.
Like I'll do a workshop and I'll play that, sing it, play it, and I'll say, how long has that been in the marketplace? And the answers I get are always twice as long as the reality. Right. People are like, oh, that's been around for 20 years, 30 years. Like, oh my, but no, well, I guess now it is getting up there, but that would have been 2010, maybe 2011.
Yeah.
When that came out. Right. But you put something into the world that is like, becomes a brand element, and, people can't separate it from the brand. And that's cool. Right. It becomes very powerful.
Right. Absolutely. So let's get into why a brand should work with you. When a brand is thinking, branding, they're not always thinking sonic first. So why should a brand come to you?
I think a brand should come to us because it's like sound is going to drive emotion better than almost any other sense, right? Drives emotion better than visuals, drives emotion more than scent. And when people have an interaction with a brand, so I'm not just talking about you're watching a commercial or you're experiencing advertising. If you're interacting with the brand, how that interaction sounds It's going to influence directly how you feel. It's going to influence if you want to have that experience again. So we think on that level of experience and emotion, and only sound can really like deliver that much on emotion and experience.
Yeah. Yeah. You've obviously worked with a lot of brands over the years. What have you learned from the brands themselves that has helped you kind of advance as a company?
What I've learned from brands has been, I've learned it from the people that we've worked with. So brand leaders, I'd say, is where our company and myself, we've learned the most from. And brand leaders that develop brands, assets that are going to last for a generation, like that is something that I've learned a lot, like how to do that and why that's important. So it's people that they have patience, they have commitment, right? They're not just chasing the immediate ROI, which is there, but they also think forward, like 5-10 years from now, what have I built? What's going to be associated with this brand? And that's something I've always been inspired by when we get to work with brands with strong brand leaders.
Excellent. Let's get to the indie part of it, because we are indie agency news, of course. Why is being independent important to your company?
Well, for me personally, I don't like being told what to do. So I love the indie route of like autonomy. And I think that's, it kind of seeps into sort of our ethos, is that we've got the ability to look at a client. And I shouldn't say like, don't tell us what to do, but I feel like being indie, we have permission to say, maybe your brief is a little bit wrong, right? You can, like, the coolest thing to do as an indie agency is to say, I think we can make your brief better. Like, you came to us with this problem and the solution you're asking for, we can do that, and maybe we will do it, but here's another way to look at your problem. What if we tweak this brief a bit? And I feel like being an indie agency, we've got that permission and maybe some expectation that we're going to bring that to the conversation as well.
Interesting. Is being independent important to your clients? And if so, how do you hear that from them?
I think it is important to our clients because, like, the one thing that I really haven't brought up in this discussion is our entertainment background. And it's not even, we still do entertainment work. So we work for ESPN. We recently did the theme for NBA on ESPN. We've worked for NBC, that whenever they do the Super Bowl, that's our music. We do news broadcasts. We've done television shows. And so being an indie agency, we are able to dip our toe in a lot of different places. And that's really attractive to clients. We're not just doing corporate sonic branding. We're doing entertainment work. We're doing experiences. We're doing industrial design. We're doing product design. And I think that is like really compelling for a client. We're not just going to be in this narrow channel of brand.
Gotcha. Talk a little bit about Continuum. I've noticed it on your site. Explain what that is and how it kind of enters into what you are as an agency.
For a long time, we felt like we would finish a job, finish an engagement with a client, and then just kind of leave them on their own, right? Okay, here's your sonic logo, here's your theme, maybe here's a few other elements, and you're on your own, right? And you do your best to try and maintain that relationship. But it's kind of like we lose the opportunity to scale their sonic identity, and the client loses that opportunity. So Continuum provides us with this ability to continue servicing the client. They can continue to access us, and they have access to a music library. But in addition to that, it's a way for them to access their brand assets, access their guidelines, access us, get our point of view, stay in touch. And what we found is that the clients that we've signed on to Continuum as part of our sonic branding package, we are much more likely to continue to solve brand problems through them. So the scale is a little bit easier to deal with. It's no longer like, hey, I've got this big 2025 initiative and I need you guys to come on board. It's a little more like, hey, we have this issue with a video coming out. We're not sure what to do with it. We can take a look at it. We can say, here's a great piece of music to use for it. Here's a good way to integrate the logo. And that way we kind of extend not just the relationship, but scale their sonic identity.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about talent, because obviously you're different from what people might consider a typical agency, in that you're music first, you're sonic first. So why should talent put your agency on the list if they're looking to get into the business, and what opportunities are there for them?
I look for talent that is interesting to me. And I think that's, when people reach out to me and say, I'd like to make music for you, I'd like to work with you. I can tell, it's pretty quick for me to know if they're going to be a good fit, because someone to work with us, for talent to work with us, they've got to be passionate about something. They've got to be literally interesting to me, and then I'll be interested in them, and then I'll figure out how to bring that out, right? It's much more challenging when someone whose talent says, I can do anything. I can write you any piece of music you want, hip hop, jazz, this, that, and they show me their website with 20 different pieces of music from all different types of genres. I've heard it. I've heard it all before. But I will be interested if someone says, I have a death metal band. You have my attention then. I might not need death metal, but you have my attention. Okay, you're interesting. And what does that mean? Like, what are you tapped into with culture that I'm not? Like, what are you aware of? What are your interests? And that has worked well for us to kind of have this it's like we're electromagnet for talent, because they know they're going to be respected, they're going to be listened to, they're going to be valued. And then given an opportunity to maybe try some kind of composition or some kind of creation out that they haven't in the past. But because they are passionate, because they have an interesting point of view, because they're tapped into some element of culture, like I want to work with them. And then vice versa. Like, it has to be genuine.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such an interesting way of kind of looking for talent, because there always has to be a fit. And I love that the fit is that you're interested in them, and they may be doing something different and out there, but you find a way to make them fit into your system.
Yeah, like I think I know, Kyle, you said that you play music, you play saxophone, and like it sounds like it's a passion of yours and it drives you. And like I think that's trying to work with people who have that in their life, to have that kind of creativity and that passion in their lives, that just comes through no matter what the assignment is. And that sort of lights me up, makes me happy to go to work, to get to talk to people and to make music with them. And I think that's shown in the work, is that we value that,
Yeah, that's great. How many people are at Main Music Studio, because you have an LA studio as well, correct?
Yeah, the number tends to fluctuate. Right now we're between 6 and 10 people at the moment. Things ebb and flow throughout the year, depending on what's happening. When we get a job, we will sort of expand. Gotcha. Right, bring people on board, and when we have several projects going on, that can expand. So it kind of expands and contracts.
Right, of course. And obviously you'll bring in studio musicians and things to fill out whatever the brief needs.
Whatever the brief needs, right? There might be a client that comes to us and I say, I know just the person for this, and I know just the person. Like, I'm not going to monkey around with calling a bunch of people, because I know I've got the perfect tool for this need. There are other times where I say, I'm going to call 8 different people, because I don't know exactly what they need, but I need something interesting. And so I'm going to call 8 different people, get 8 different pieces of music from them. Of course, that's going to be a slightly bigger budget at that point to start contracting all those people. But I don't like to think that we that our company is ever pigeonholed to a certain sound, a certain style, right? I want to take the client need, take the creative solution, and figure out how to meet them in the middle, how to put them together. So the number of people that are working with us can be a lot sometimes, but as a kind of, your steady base crew, that's a little less than what actually goes into a project.
Gotcha. All right, let's have a little fun. Not that we haven't been having fun, but let's have a little fun with our weirdos, misfits, or underdogs. This is where almost everybody in the indie world is one of those three. So what would you consider made music a weirdo, misfit, or underdog?
What do you decide? How do you parse apart a weirdo or a misfit?
That's for you to decide. If you'd like to be a combination, you certainly can be.
Somewhere between the weirdo and the misfit. And I love, everyone loves a good underdog story, right? Like, you talk about yourself, everyone wants to have the underdog thing. I'm not gonna put us into that category, because I think we as an agency have been very successful in terms of like having the most amount of sonic identities on air, right, and in use and in market, and like that's something I'm super proud of. What I was talking to you before about, like bringing the people that we surround ourselves with, the musicians, the talent, we seem to just attract a lot of weirdos and misfits, and that I need that, right? The people that it's like I said, the electromagnet. The people that I work with are interesting people, and that's why they work with me. Right. And a lot of times that means they might fit under that weirdo misfit sort of category. I think as I talked to you about it, Kyle, the probably best title for the company is going to be Misfit, because you asked at the top of this interview, what are you best known for? And I had to tell you sonic branding. Mm-hmm. But that's not the coolest, most interesting stuff we do. And if you looked at a list of things that we did last year, it's a handful of sonic branding for sure. And that tends to be the buzzword, but we're doing a lot of cool shit that is hard to categorize, right? Yeah. So if I'm at a cocktail party and people ask me what I do for a living, if I think they can handle something beyond marketing, or music and marketing, I'll still probably go sonic branding, because people have heard of that term. Yeah. But the actual stuff that we end up doing, that people call us for, that people want our help on, it's a little harder to categorize that, I'd say. So I'm going to go with misfit.
I love it.
Misfits.
Love it. And that was a great way of explaining it too. A lot of people don't know why they are what they are, but you explained it perfectly.
I mean, ironically, Kyle, I was just talking to one of our PR people about this, and kind of about thinking about what 2026 was going to look like. And we were in a very similar way, where I was like, I realized some of our best work, and a lot of work, is clients that have learned to trust us, and we trust them. And they're not calling us with a straightforward, hey, how much is it for 5 pieces of sound? They're saying, hey, what do you think of this? Here's a problem I have. And we're like, well, we've got an idea, or hold on, we're going to come back with an idea. And that's happening more and more. And that's the company I want to be in, right? The one where you're like being trusted and asked to solve problems through sound and music. Like, how cool is that? But yeah, it's kind of hard to write a PR release on that.
Yeah, but I mean, I love that, because it's less transactional. It's more personal, and
absolutely,
that makes it more fun. All right, so now you get to call out a CMO, a marketer, or someone in the industry that you just want to call out, say hi to, or just give a kudos, whoever you want, and whoever it may be. Maybe it's somebody you want to get business from, or maybe it's just somebody you want to shout out.
Well, this came to my, when you show me those questions, and I thought about this, and I had to think for a second, and then it just popped into my head. She's retired, so it's probably not going to happen, but Esther Lee was the head of brand for AT&T back in 2010s when we did the sonic identity work with them. And I was, a younger person at that time. But I was fortunate enough to be in the room with her, a brand leader for AT&T.
Right.
I'm going to set the scene. It's 2010. AT&T was the first carrier of the iPhone. A lot of technical glitches and drops. And she was in charge of sort of rebuilding the brand image and modernizing it. And one of the things was, let's make a sonic identity. She did a lot besides that, but sonic identity. And a sonic logo is often at odds with a advertising team, right? Because they've got 30 seconds to tell their joke, and you're going to take up 3 seconds of that or 4 seconds of that.
Right.
And I got to see her kind of in a room of kind of, at that point, then you kind of had like a room full of suits, and just kind of say, no, you're going to do this. The brand is important, right? She said, I'm tired of you treating this like a stinky fish. And everyone just got so uncomfortable, and they squirmed in their suits. And I was just like, oh, okay, that's really cool. Like and all the time since I've worked in the industry since then, I've never gotten to witness somebody just kind of stand up for something they were believing in, even when it was an uncomfortable conversation, especially in a room where maybe Esther Lee wasn't, the dominant paradigm, right? Kind of a room full of dudes in suits. And she was like, no, how come I'm not being respected when we talk about this? Was sort of the underlying tone. And that stuck with me. We got a chance to work with her again when we did some work with MetLife. And I believe she is retired. And I hope I did the story justice and I didn't romanticize it too much, but I would love to work, if she ever comes back to any sort of brand and wants to do a sonic identity, I'll do it for the experience alone.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And that's a great story. And even if retirement is the thing, that's a great shout out. So
yeah.
Anyway, well, this has been an absolute pleasure. Danielle from Made Music Studio, thank you so much for talking with me. And thank you for everyone for tuning in to Meet an Indie Agency with Made Music Studio. Take care.
Thank you.